This Sunday night, January 26th, Jazz Winnipeg, in collaboration with the Fort Garry Hotel, is presenting the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra. This is a very special concert that will see the WJO release their eighth studio album. Called Connections East Meets West, this recording will feature the music of two of Canada's greatest big band composers, Vancouver based trumpet player and big band leader Fred Stride, and Montreal based trombonist and band leader Jean-Nicolas Trottier. Together, they have collaborated to compose a fabulous nine movement suite for the WJO. Leading the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra through the Connection Suite will be University of Manitoba trumpet player and teacher and jazz educator Richard Gillis. This is going to be a fantastic concert that features some of the best new big band jazz around. A concert that will have the band and the audience swinging like crazy. And joining me here over Zoom to chat about the WJO's Connections East Meets West album released show, I am joined by WJO leader Richard Gillis and composer Fred Stride. Hey, Richard, and hey, Fred, how's it going? Nice to have
Hey,
you here.
And warm.
Mm,
yeah.
mm. So, Richard, I want you to take me way back. Can you talk about the commissioning process? What made you want to collaborate on a project with Fred and Jean-Nicolas?
Um, I was well, when you look at Canada Council projects, and certainly wanted to do some recording. We just one thing that I thought might be kind of unique was to bring composers from across Canada to collaborate on different things. And I had put in an application a while ago to Canada Council for a 3-year program, and Fred was one part of that. That didn't go through at that time, so I did things one at a time. And first of all, we did a project with Philippe Cote and David Braid, and that was fun. That worked out very well. That was the release of that album was delayed because of COVID. COVID hit just as we were kind of trying to finish the last part of it, and it really delayed it a couple of years. But in the meantime, we'd also applied for some other projects we were thinking of. We put together Jill Townsend and Christine Jensen for a project which we released last year, and then I had talked to Jean-Nicolas Trottier, and I said, "Well, who would you like to collaborate with if you did a collaboration?" He said, "Fred Stride. I want to do it with Fred Stride." So that was kind of cool because I had been talking to Fred about different projects in any case. So that's how that came about. And so this is our third collaboration like this. And it kind of brings out some things. And it also maybe gets some composers that wouldn't normally even know each other. Maybe they might know about each other,
Mm.
but it starts some conversations and things like that. Maybe it could spur other projects. I don't know.
Yeah. And Fred, I know you were a little leery about doing a collaborative thing. What convinced you to take part in the project?
Well, the lyric that's Stravinsky said, yes, the money speaks, yes. When's it due? You're gonna pay how much? No. Um, hey, but the question again there, Chris.
What convinced you? You were leery
Oh
at
yeah.
first, but what convinced you to want to do it?
Well, um, it wasn't the money actually. I was anxious about doing something because I've never seen or known about or experienced anything that's collaborative creatively. And
Mm,
because when you're tentatively talking about doing that stuff, there's a lot of compromise. And and not that I'm against compromise, but for instance, if a particular person I'm just finishing up a commission now. It had very for a chamber ensemble, it had very specific parameters, not just length and instrumentation, but also the content, where they wanted something that was pretty and pleasant.
mm.
Well, that's quite I wouldn't even call it a straitjacket, but it does kind of steer you, so you can't just do whatever you want. normally when a commission comes in, classical or jazz, it's instrumentation and length. That's
Mhm.
about it. That's all you're really getting. So away you go and you come up with your thing and you're responsible for yourself. You're responsible for your own work, getting it done to the best of your ability, and creating something that's interesting, first of all, for ourselves as composers, and then hopefully for the audience. And even more so, the musicians who have to play the damn thing. You know, that can be another thing to it. But I had met Jean-Nicolas. I had gone back east in 2011. I was invited to go to a concert in Kingston of my music, and they put together Greg, oh crap, I can't remember his name. He put together an all-star band made up of Kingston players, Toronto players, and Montreal players. And of the Toronto players, I knew Brian O'Kane because Brian used to live in Vancouver, and a couple others as well. And so we did that concert. But I thought that while I'm out there, nobody has to pay airfare. The hotels are covered,
Mhm.
so it's just a clinician fee. So, and a lot of this was sponsored by SOCAN and Canada Council, and so there's a which I didn't have to deal with. Somebody else was dealing with that. And then so I is- contacted people I knew, and one of the people I talked to was Ron DeLauro, who was then at McGill, and who talked to Gord Foote, who was then at McGill. And I've known both of them. They said, "Oh, definitely." So I went to Humber because of Denny Christensen, and then I went up to Kingston. Then I went to Montreal and did workshops at McGill and the University of Toronto of Montreal. And it was at the University of Montreal that I met Jean-Nicolas through Ron DeLauro. And Jean-Nicolas gave me a CD that he had just completed. I quite liked it. And somebody young. And I went, well, if I have to work with somebody, he might be somebody. He's not an older guy that's stuck in the mud like me. He's gonna be. But it turned out that in terms of writing together, he and I were of the same mind,
Mhm.
which
Uh,
caused us to write a certain way. Yeah.
yeah. And speaking of that, the suite is pretty much divided in half between you and Jean-Nicolas.
Well, yeah.
How would you how would you say the compositions are different between the two of you? Is it harmonic language? Is
Well,
it textures, counterpoint? Do they
all of
differ?
all of the above. They sound different from one another. Um, uh, I have the way that I like to write when I'm just writing on my own, but using and it's got a lot of lines in it. So when somebody asks, I said, "Well, think of Bill Holman on steroids."
Hmm.
It has some of that quality, a lot of linear stuff, but a lot of dense stuff. Harmonically, um, uh, Jean-Nicolas leans towards Wayne Shorter,
Yeah.
which I picked up on. He smiled one day when we're having coffee or lunch or something one day in Winnipeg, and I said, you know, I said your pseudo Wayne Shorter harmony, and he goes, "Hey," and he smiled because he saw that I picked up on that. And he's not that I'm not aggressive, but he's a very strong brass oriented writer. So when we got going, he said he was in the middle of something. So we did a thing like this, and I told him how I felt, and he's, you know, like to be honest, I'm a little leery. I says, what I don't want to do is like I write a melody and you orchestrate it, or I write 8 bars, you write the next 8. I don't want to do that. And he goes, neither do I.
Huh.
So because I was in between projects at the beginning of the writing, I wrote which became I should go grab the scores. I can't remember the titles now. The one about center point, centerpiece, the one about Winnipeg.
I got it right here, so I'll just dig it out. Anyway, go keep talking.
Yeah,
I'll find
well,
it.
yeah. So that was the first one. I didn't have that title, and then I went, well, and I finished, and we had agreed, let's both write something between 7 and 8 minutes. Okay. Because Richard kind of
Mhm.
gave us a ballpark of like 45 minutes or so, like within, okay, we can do that. Not a problem. So I wrote this one and I sent the MIDI to Jean-Nicolas. And
Yeah.
then a few weeks later, he sends me, uh, I can't remember which one he sent me first, but it was one of the longer ones. And he had come up with something, and he said he was inspired by something I had done. I didn't hear it, but he was inspired by that. And then I decided, well, we know we're going to write some other long movements. Let's challenge ourselves. Let's see if we can write a movement that's 2.5 minutes long, no more. Which is like kind of reminding me of that commission that I did for WJO where I wrote Waves, where
Yeah.
the stipulation was no more than 5 minutes. Man, was that hard.
And so,
The solo section kept getting shorter.
for Richard, for you directing the band, how would you characterize the contrasts between the movements of the suite?
Oh boy, I was just thinking about this, once we were done the concert and then we, got into the recording, and sometimes the recording can be a little fragmented in terms of, your focus.
Mhm.
And we've released another CDs, another recording since then, and we're working on a ninth one. And so I had to listen back a little bit. I was listening a little bit today. I don't know. I look at them as personalities. I know what Fred is saying in terms of the different sounds, but it's kind of nice to have that contrast.
Yeah.
It just you recognize the connection in terms of how it fits together in the suite, but you can see it's like it's like a bit of a conversation to some degree.
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
yeah, it'll be nice to revisit that. Now, this performance that we're doing on Sunday is more of a recognition that, okay, here we go. We're putting this out there.
Yeah.
It won't be the same as when we did the concert 2 years ago, but it'll be nice for us to revisit. We're going to do
Yeah.
most of the suite.
Have there been any revisions to the suite since you did it at the art gallery?
Just in the Fred did.
Jean-Nicolas revised a couple of things. I didn't change anything.
I thought you gave me something just for the recording.
Yes, so you could play with so I wrote out the pauses in
Right.
meters, like so
Yeah,
instead of
yeah.
a 4/4, you got a 7/4. That's all I did, just to
Mm.
make the recording process easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Richard, can you talk about that recording process? Where was the recording made, and when was it made?
Well, it was made over the course of does it last winter? So we did it last winter, and Larry Roy was in charge of it. I was just swamped with some other projects, and I basically said, Larry, I trust you. He's got great ears. Larry Roy does some great work, and I know that Fred was in touch with him. He would send some material to Fred and Jean-Nicolas and get some feedback from them. And so, we got the rhythm section. That was very important to do the rhythm section together. And then I was there for the rhythm section. I can't remember if we had another horn in there just to.
No,
just so we had
it was just the rhythm section.
It was just them. Just wanted to give them context of what was
Yeah.
going on and what they were, Now, I think I'm trying to remember if all of them did the original concert.
No, it's a different drummer.
It was a different drummer, but the other guys were the same.
The others were the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, oh no, and guitar was different. Guitar and
Right,
drums were different.
because
Bass and
Larry
piano
was doing the guitar.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we brought it in sections from there and layered the sections.
You want to give a shout out to the studio that you recorded it at? Do you remember?
Well, Larry Roy's studio.
Oh, his home studio. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got, yeah, he's done some nice work on that.
That's fantastic. Uh, the Connection Suite has a lot of room for solos. Can you talk about some of the performers who are going to be doing solos on Sunday night? Some of the performers in the
Um,
band.
yeah. Oh, well, obviously, Will Bonas, Will is sort of like you just give him a piece of music. It could be upside down. It could not have very much information on it, and you're going to get some pretty interesting things.
Yeah.
Carl Kohut is like
Love
Carl
it.
plays everything. Tell him how you want it, and he'll play it. And Niall Cade, tenor saxophone.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
just,
excellent,
I
excellent.
mean, he just plays so well.
Mm.
So sophisticated playing. John Challoner, as just excellent trumpet player.
That's
Andrew,
great.
yeah, just okay. Who else have we got? Matt Walden, did some stuff. Andrew Littleford,
Hmm.
The
who
lead
Fred
alto
knows
player.
well. Pardon?
Yeah. Well, I've known Andrew since he was a little kid. I think Chris and I talked about that
Yeah,
last time.
yeah,
Same with John Challoner too. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a great lineup, and it's a great lineup of band. Um, I know the stage in the basement of the Fort Garry, it's small. Is the CD release happening in the basement, or are they going to make the
Yes.
stage
Yeah.
bigger?
Well, we've played there before. We played there last year when we released the Jensen Townsend project. So, saxes are on the floor, just a little closer to the tables. You can reach
Okay.
over and keep your drink on somebody's table. No, it's enough. It's enough space.
It's kind of like Frankie's here in Vancouver. Yeah, you're
Nicely,
right up
nicely
against the
cozy.
tables. Yeah.
It's going to
Yeah, there was one club we played in with my band, and the audience had to walk between the rhythm section and the horns to get in.
That's the reality of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't
it's been
call it a big band for nothing.
yeah. It's been so great to talk about the CD release for Connections. I got to ask the both of you, how does it feel to finally have the thing put down in wax and recorded
Wax.
or digital?
That's like 150 years ago.
Yeah. It's really nice to get a project wrapped up. Hopefully we can, besides today, hopefully we can use some of the material or Fred or Jean-Nicolas in other projects too. But just to have a record of what you've done
Yeah.
is nice. It's nice to have it there.
Yeah. Too much of what we do as jazz musicians in the larger ensembles, not so much the small groups, because they can record prolifically, as we have that Cellar Live label here, which they're prolific in turning out
Yeah.
chronograph but even so, I think this is chronograph as well, isn't it, Richard?
Yes.
Yeah. So Cody and his wife, they're doing that small label there in Calgary. That's we kind of bring them projects. I did one called the Saskatchewan Suite a few years ago, and to get a big band recorded, the cost of paying everybody a modest amount. There are a lot
Yeah.
of things with the AFM that enable projects like this to happen that weren't the story 40, 50 years ago. The fees to pay for these kind of small limited recordings was quite high in relationship to the no budgets you had. Today, they're a little more feasible, but they're still very expensive because if you have the studio per day, then you have the engineer, the assistant engineer, if there's one, then you have all the editing, all the mixing and tweaking, and all of that takes a lot of time. I think by the time Larry and I were dealing with the last one, which was the movement about Winnipeg, about being center, I think he was done. I think his patience with me was running a little on the thin side. Jean-Nicolas
Halfway
was
point.
halfway
Point
point.
is the
There
name
you
of
go.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jean-Nicolas was always chiming in as well, so it wasn't just me. But I was a little more insistent. I think probably too. I have more studio experience in editing and mixing and things, so I was looking for certain things. So, but I have not heard the final masters or anything like that. But what I was heard at the end, it all sounded really nice. The band sounds great as
Yeah.
always, and the soloists, just everybody sounded so fantastic. So I think it's a real um, for the listeners, and hope that everybody buys this CD in whatever form they want to buy it. Ideally CDs, if you're doing
Well,
that. But that we know, I'm a holdout. I buy CDs.
Yeah.
That there's enough variety and interest there, and one of the things too that often scares people is all this really modern stuff. Well, it's modern because it was written recently, but it's not cutting edge modern in terms of we're going after boop and beep and all of that kind of stuff and harsh
yeah.
dissonances. There's dissonances, but there's beautiful stuff too. That I thought some of that those little guitar piano features that Jean-Nicolas wrote are lovely pieces.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. It's been great. I'm going to wrap up the conversation by when is the CD actually going to be available to be
Well,
purchased?
I believe we have them in hand now. So we'll certainly have them Sunday. And then the actual official electronic releases on February 7th
Perfect.
through
Amazing.
Chronograph.
Hmm. Fred and Richard, this has been amazing. The CD release on Sunday, the 26th, as presented by Jazz Winnipeg and the Fort Garry Hotel, is going to be fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today. It's been great.
and my
Yeah.
pleasure. Yeah.